Link trudged through the hot sand and the blaring sun. He followed a series of closely spaced red flags the Gerudo set up to navigate through sandstorms that could get one turned around. After a long while, he came up on one of those storms, a thunderhead of dark brown blotting out the blurry horizon. Sand whipped his face like thousands of pricks of needles. Maybe this was why the militants wore veils. The wind itself was brutal, as Link's body was forcefully pushed back with each gust. Each red flag he passed was flapping violently, its frayed end of the cloth waving with vigor. At least this was a break from the zealous heat. Finally, he emerged out the other side of the sand cloud to a true wonder of the world. A stone colossus stood proud against the desert sky, emerging from the sand within a valley of desert rock hills. The behemoth must have stood 100 feet tall. It was a giant golden rock, with a fascinating facade boasting a carving of a nearly full-height statue inset into the face of the towering formation. A woman was expressed from the waist up. She wore an intricately textured chest piece with a brooch, like his adversary in his recent sword fight had. She held out her hands at her waist with her palms up. Was this the famed sand goddess? In this little desert oasis, a small pond of water sat directly before Link, surrounded by palm trees and bushes. Directly behind that was a natural stone arch of the red rock of the region. Passing underneath, Link saw the typical hexagonal slab before an entrance doorway, which was located below the overhanging hands. Link noticed the symbol beneath his feet, a pair of curved teardrop shapes arranged to fit together as a circle. As he studied it, he heard the light tapping of feet drop behind him. "Sheik," Link said without looking. It must have been he who dropped from the top of the stone arch. "Past, present, future," he started. "You really are the hero of time." "Did you know? Why didn't you tell me about any of that?" Link asked him, finally turning around to face him. "One must overcome their own trials to discover their own destiny," Sheik offered. Link thought of the way he put the pieces together to come to find out who he was. "Did your mother say that too?" "No," he said, taking a step forward. "I did." Link couldn't help but ask something that was burning inside him, as Sheik continued to stare him down through his piercing red eyes, something that both Rudo and Impa said. "Is Zelda alive, Sheik?" he asked with dry repose. Sheik continued to stand there, his arms hanging at his sides. It was impossible to read his expression under his veil. "Is she?" Link asked again. Sheik extended the silence until he finally stepped back and performed the flashbang routine. After Sheik's blatant ignorance of Link's plight with his blinding exit, Link was left to face the desert colossus, into which he entered. Inside, two statues of cobras with engraved slabs of very red rock between their fangs flanked the banisters of a grand staircase. The engravings were in a squiggly writing, a new language of characters Link concluded to be Gerudo. Up the stairs, the theme of red continued with a grand red rug in front of nothing but a wall of ornate pillars and torches. But on either side of the rug was a doorway. However, these doorways both led to dead ends. The right one had a huge block of slate covering the opening, and the left one had only a tiny passage at the floor. There was no way he would fit through there, and there was no other direction to go in this foyer. Link stepped back from it. He was left again unequipped to deal with a challenge at hand, or so it seemed. He thought about what Sheik had said about overcoming one's own trials. Link arrived to a solution last time, and this time was no different. In fact, the answer to this problem was probably the same solution. He must have had to enlist the aid of the Goddess of Time. If he were a child again, he might be able to fit through the tight passageway. So, for a second time, he played the song of the Goddess of Time and experienced the strange sensation of becoming a child again. When he opened his eyes, he was startled by a young woman crouching right beside the narrow passage. In turn, she was startled by the appearance of a boy behind her and stood up. "I haven't seen you around, kid." She was a Gerudo, with her red hair up in a long ponytail, adorned with a large ruby. The other jewels' high-ranking positions were also a part of her outfit, which included slippers of red felt, baggy pants of flamingo silk, bracers of leather, and a band of plaid cotton wrapping her chest. "Are you Naburu?" Link asked in his child voice. Her long nose aimed down at him, over her pink lips. "Who's asking? You wouldn't happen to be one of Ganondorf's followers, are you?" "What if I am?" Link selected his words wisely. This could have been the Naburu who was banished to this temple under suspicions of being opposed to Ganondorf. But this could have also already been the corrupted Naburu. This also could have been somebody else entirely. Her bare scrawny belly shook as she laughed out loud. "Don't try to act cool, kid. I was just asking. A kid like you could never be one of Ganondorf's followers." "Does that mean you're not?" Link asked cautiously. Resting her elbow on her other hand, she fiddled with one of her gold earrings, which matched her golden eyes, through which she examined Link. "You've got guts. I like you. First of all, let me introduce myself. I am indeed Naburu of the Gerudo. I'm a lone wolf thief, but don't get me wrong. Though we're both thieves, I'm completely different than Ganondorf. With his followers, he stole from women and children, and he even killed people." Link wondered how far this trip in the past took him. "You mean long ago, in the war?" She nodded her head. "Only one Gerudo man is born every 100 years. Even though our laws say that lone male Gerudo must become king of the Gerudo, I'll never bow to such an evil man." Link was thrilled to hear that. Naburu was not corrupted yet at this point, and the suspicions of her fellow Gerudo were true. "Me neither." She gave a crooked smile. "What's your name, kid?" "Link," he replied with jubilation. "Link? What kind of name is that? Well, anyway, I want to ask you a favor." Link scrunched his eyebrows slightly. "What's that?" "He's planning something terrible, and I'm going to try to stop it." Link wondered if she was in on the plans to assassinate the King of Hyrule. "But to do that, I need to get deeper into this temple." "Why is that?" "There's something about this temple, something sinister is plaguing it, and I think it has something to do with Ganondorf." Something sinister was indeed going on in this place, even this far back in time. Link was needing to get deeper into the temple as well. The whole reason he came back to this time was so that he could fit through the hole in the wall before them. He pointed at it and said, "You need to get through here?" "Through there." Naburu pointed to the slate block in the opposite doorway. "But that heavy block can be moved with treasure found through here." She pointed back over to the hole. "Will you go through this tiny hole and get the treasure that's hidden inside?" Link nodded without hesitation. "The treasure is the silver gauntlets," Naburu explained. "If you equip them, they are said to grant you great physical strength." Link's eyebrows rose after hearing of another piece of equipment imbued with mystical power. He already had the hover boots that gave him light feet. Imagine what he could do with strong arms. No, kid. Don't even think about taking this treasure for yourself." Naburu must have read Link's face. "The silver gauntlets won't even fit a little kid like yourself if you try to equip them. I want you to be a good boy and give them to me." Naburu stepped towards him. "Do it so I can stop Ganondorf. These things won't just get me deeper into the temple, they will help me take down Ganondorf." Naburu was truly against Ganondorf. Little did Link know, while he was questing to try to stop Ganondorf, somebody in the western desert was too. "So, how about it? Will you do it?" "Of course, Naburu." Link smiled up at her. "Thanks, kid," she smiled back. "You and I, let's give Ganondorf and his followers a big surprise, shall we?" Link nodded, still smiling. He turned to the passage on the ground and began to crouch down to it. "Hey Link," Naburu called. Link turned around, still crouching. "If you can successfully get the silver gauntlets, I'll do something great for you," she said before giving a little wink. Link nodded again, not caring for any reward. All he wanted was to help her take down Ganondorf. He hoped this excursion in the past would help in the future, like his trip through the abhorrent bottom of the well did. When Link reached the other side of the passage, he was in a half-circular room lit by torches, with quarter-circular steps that led up to a stone platform. Greeting him in the middle of it was something strange. It was the texture of fired clay, and took the shape of a carved sarcophagus with the head of a jackal. It just floated there, with no attacks, no threat. But the door ahead was chained with a padlock. Something told Link that this thing, whatever it was, had the key. He tried slashing at it with the Kokiri sword, but it did nothing. "What is this thing, Navi?" he inquired. "That is an Anubis," she told him. "It's vulnerable to fire." Link took his little blade and dipped it into the burning oil of the torch, like he did with the arrow in the Shadow Temple. With the tip flaming, he stuck it into the weird creature, and it disintegrated immediately, dropping a key in the process. On the other side of the locked door, a long square shaft was all there was, and the only way was up, on a wall of jagged stones that provided plenty of grab holds and footholds. At the top, a dim room with a high, domical ceiling and a sloped shelf sat barren, except for a lone sculpture of a personified sun on the floor, its rays stylized and its face asleep. The door to the next room had bars securing it. No key would be getting that open. "It says something here," Navi said, reading an inscription adjacent to the sun sculpture. "It says, 'Show me the light.'" Link looked around. There was no light, except for the torchlight in the shaft. But he saw something above the sloped shelf, on the side of the dome. Are those palm flowers? They were in a dark, hot place after all. Link found a loose rock amidst a pile of sand, and he barreled it up against gravity to jostle the explosive plant any amount. He missed the first couple of tries, but on the third try, he saw a faint light flicker where he threw it. He protected himself with Hylian's shield, taking cover from the debris falling down from the explosion. When he looked up from underneath, a bright white light poured in from the hole in the wall of the dome ceiling, right onto the sun sculpture's face, which was now somehow awake and smiling, rotating its whimsical rays. This brought up the bars on the door, allowing Link to go through. The next room was a vast space. A tall ceiling escaped the sight of Link, as he looked up into it from the ledge the door deposited him on. On each of the 4 sandstone walls, engravings of Gerudo writing covered every square inch, but yielded to a grand feature to Link's left. The sand goddess sat below the ledge, her legs bent and crossed at the ankles. Her monstrous figure towered above into the voluminous chamber, and her arms reached out in the same palms-up pose. Her cheeks were painted with streaks of red, and her back was equipped with a sheathed sword, much like how Link wore the Master Sword. Atop the forehead of this iteration rested the head of a green king cobra, its long body enveloping her bare waist. There was no way down off the ledge to the base of the great statue. Link turned to his right, finding a staircase up to a heavy stone door. His hand following the decorative banister guarding the edge, he climbed up the short flight and lifted the counterweighted vertical sliding door. Another staircase of a few carpeted steps made another quarter-circular turn clockwise beneath a sloped sandstone ceiling lit by the light of torches on the wall. The red runner of carpet then turned a square corner to the left, leading up a longer straight staircase, whose ceiling was also vaulted, but to a ridge. At the top of this flight, yet another stone door stood in the way. Opening this one led him into another room, lined in bricks of sandstone. The run of carpet turned one more corner to the left. The hall widened, the expansion allowing for the carpet to be flanked by brick columns spaced at even intervals. The sanguine carpet terminated at another arrangement of sandstone bricks. This structure was a throne-like seat, upon which another statue sat. Only this one was not a sculpture of the sand goddess, but a knight of polished steel plate armor, complete with a horned helm, a heavy silvery chest piece, and enormous brass leg guards over a tunic of chainmail. The accompanying weapon of the armor set was a glimmering battle axe that sat across the lap of the mannequin. Link stepped behind the throne. Another chained door was located directly in line with the tall back of the chair, as if the statue of armor was guarding it. Taking a minute to ponder where the key must be for the padlock on the chains, his heart skipped 2 beats as the throne behind him was crushed to bits. He slowly turned around, terrified at what he might find. The statue of armor stood 8 feet tall behind the pile of rubble that had been its seat. The blade of its battle axe was covered in dust, and was resting on its right glove. It was still again, but Link was not fooled. He slowly reached for his sword and shield, but before he could, the unit closed its grasp on the glove and lifted the axe high above its head. Link jumped out of the way of the blade as it wedged itself into the floor. As the monster struggled to yank it out, Link was able to ready himself for what would surely be his toughest battle yet. Navi? Link needed her help now more than ever. "How do I—" "That monstrosity is an iron knuckle," she said. "Strike when it drops its guard, and watch out for his axe attack. It hurts a lot." Link watched as the Iron Knuckle angrily dismantled the nearest brick column with a single one-handed swing. He was determined not to feel the might of a 20-pound axe walloping him in the gut. The chainmail that protected him from the Gerudo's scimitar would not stop that behemoth, so his strategy was defensive. He carefully watched the warrior's pattern of attack. Its slow marching from its encumbering armor gave ample time to steer clear, but though it was sluggish, its own defense was on point, not allowing Link to get a peek of its backside. This made Link suspicious. With absolutely no weak spots on its front side, the impenetrable armor could have had a weak spot on its backside. It was a risk, but he stepped into the range of the devastating battle axe. The Iron Knuckle swung downward again, jamming the axe into the floor once more as Link sidestepped it. This was his opportunity to run behind the beast and slice with his short blade the center of its spine. A knot of leather straps that held the armor together severed under the duress of the Kokiri sword, and the massive armor fell to the ground, clanking loudly into a pile of metal. There was nothing but a full body of chainmail underneath, its hood still covered by the helm, its boots still clumping about, and its gloves still wielding the giant axe. Link questioned whether that was the right call, for with less armor, the Iron Knuckle now had better mobility, demonstrated by a charge towards Link's cowering body. But out of self-preservation, he leapt backwards to avoid the blade swinging through the air. It was when the knight finally went for a vertical chop that Link could get behind it once more, jabbing his little sword between the gaps of the chains that held the mail together. This was apparently the coup de grace, and whatever this thing was disintegrated, leaving the rest of its armor and axe to fall into another pile on the ground. Sifting through all the powerful gear, Link finally found what he suspected was there. He took the key in hand, and he went through the guarded door. It led outside. Link was above the temple entrance, standing on the carved ridges of what appeared to be the sand goddess's fingers. "Hey, Link," said a familiar voice from above. Link looked up to find his avian friend once more, perched on the carved brooch upon the sculpture's chest. "Surprised to see me?" "A little," Link said, genuinely surprised by Gabora's appearance here. He still thought he recognized the owl's voice from somewhere else. "Link, my boy, you stand before me fully matured now, don't you?" he said proudly of him. Link remembered the first time he met the mysterious owl. He was a timid boy who was reluctant about the journey he was thrust into, but now his confidence oozed from his every being. "I never got the chance to thank you." "For what?" Kapora asked, his body bobbing up and down. "For helping me realize who I really am, what I meant to be, what I meant to do." Link had been questioning his identity for some time, but he knew his destiny now, thanks to this bird. "And what was that?" he asked so quizzically. "This kingdom," Link thought about its history, its bloody history. "It needs my help, no matter what happened during the war, and I'm meant to help everyone in it who needs it." He looked down in the direction where Nabooru was waiting, even Gerudo. "Is that your destiny?" Kapora emphasized. Gabora's story of the hero spirit resonated within him. He felt that this spirit had been fully awakened in him. He felt both the pensiveness and the honor of being a foretold hero. "I know what it takes to be the hero," Link stopped to think. Had Kapora told him the Hero of Time legend yet amidst this time travel? "Hero of Time?" Kapora finished. This owl must have transcended time. After all, he knew of Link's time travel, and he told him his destiny as if he knew it all along, for centuries. Link suddenly placed the familiar voice. "Raru?" "Woohoo!" Gabora seemed to smile as he cooed. "Your mother would have been proud." Link looked up, amazed that Raru could have known her. It must have been as Kapora. He must have known his identity since the beginning, and watched over his baby self from the very beginning. "Your father, too," he added. "He fought valiantly for this kingdom." So Link's father was a soldier, who must have fought in the war, and the mother of his child fled the war to protect that child. A tear formed in Link's eye, which came rolling down his cheek. He swelled with pride for his deceased parents. "I know you will do the same. From now on, the future of all the people in Hyrule is on your shoulders." The majestic owl continued as he lifted his body under the flaps of his great wings. "I will continue to watch you. Hoot, 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 hoot." With that, he flew off into the desert sky, leaving Link alone on the right hand of the sand goddess. Until then, he hadn't noticed the chest beside his legs. Using the same key on the padlock, he opened it to find a pair of ruby-encrusted bracers, the desert daylight shimmering on their silver surface. "You found the silver gauntlets," said Navi, "but these gauntlets won't fit a kid. Plus, you promised to give them to Nabooru. You should keep your word." Right as she said that, who but Nabooru should come running out of the temple below them, but something was wrong. She was being chased. "Yar!" she shrieked as she stumbled onto the hexagonal slab between the temple and the arch formation. The assailants chasing her were a pair of green creatures dressed in black cloaks, with huge buggy eyes and enormous hooked noses that bent over their gnarled teeth. They each wore unique earrings and brooches on their forehead like Gerudo, each matching the hair off the top of their little head. One's was red, but it flickered like flames of a fire. The other one's was blue, but it fogged and gleamed like a crystal of ice. The two circled Nabooru, flying around on wicker brooms. "Witches!" Navi whispered. You fiends! Ganondorf's minions!" Nabooru shouted at them as they closed in on her, cackling away. Suddenly, a purple vortex appeared underneath her, and she slid down into it like a pool of quicksand. "Hey, where are you taking me?" she demanded as she sunk deeper into the portal. "Link!" she shouted up to him as she saw him. "Get out of here, now! These witches! They're using black magic on me!" Her cries were muffled by the swirling opening into who knows where. Nabooru had disappeared, and the witches closed the portal behind her. Laughing away, they flew their brooms back into the entrance to the temple below them. Left there, again, in the palm of the sand goddess, Link felt guilty he just stood by and watched, not even pulling out an arrow for Nabooru's captors. But Navi consoled him, trying to reassure him there was nothing he could do from up there. She hypothesized that these witches were holding themselves up deep in the temple, just where Nabooru wanted to get to with the silver gauntlets. With the gauntlets in his hands anyway, all he could do now was return to the future to finish what she started. So that's what Link did. He backtracked to the temple's foyer. Once he played the song to return to the future, he wondered where Nabooru could have been kidnapped to. The portal looked a lot like the one Phantom Ganondorf disappeared through, but the lead Gerudo back at the fortress was instructed by Nabooru to send the boy garbed in green her way. He slid his fingers through the leather lining of the gauntlets. Just like the hover boots made him feel lighter, the gloves instantly made him feel stronger. With little effort, he slid the slate block away from the doorway. Link wondered where Nabooru was now, and if she had been corrupted by the witches. The musty smell of dust and age met his nose. The room behind the block lit up with a torch, in the same location as its counterpart on the other side. In fact, this room was an exact mirror image of the room he crawled into on the other side. Up the quarter-circular staircase, there was even another Anubis, floating in the middle of the stone platform. Naturally, Link went over to the flame of the torch to dip his Kokiri dagger, since it had worked so well before. But the floating creature took it with no problem. Confused, he alerted Navi. "The duality of this temple, the witches of fire and ice. Do you still have the blue fire, Link?" Link had forgotten all about the extra blue fire he captured in a bottle. He hesitated, knowing how powerful its healing properties were. But he was confident he didn't need this safety net anymore. After all, he had forgotten about it. He uncorked the bottle and splashed its contents onto the chrysalis-like thing, which, along with the blue flame, evaporated like steam off boiling water. This produced another key, which unlocked the door to another climbable shaft. At the top of this one, a symmetrical version of the other high domical ceiling room was there. However, a line of 4 sun sculptures hung on the wall beneath the sloped shelf. Across from them, a mirror between the fangs of a king cobra statue shone a torchlit reflection of Link back at him. There were still a cluster of bomb flowers on the side of the dome, above the sloped shelf. Link connected the dots to see that he needed to let the sunlight in and reflect it off the mirror, but onto which sun? Another idea hit him. He reached in his knapsack for the lens of truth. When he put it to his eye, they all disappeared, except the one on the end, closest to the door. So he shot the cluster of bomb flowers with an arrow, and aimed the dusty ray of light right onto the true sun sculpture, its personified face subsequently waking up with a smile. The indoor statue of the sand goddess greeted him once again in the next room, but this time from the other side. The identical ledge had an identical banister and identical staircase, except the carpet runner was blue on this side. This carpet led him down a mirror image of the hallways that led him to the Iron Knuckles throne room, to a mirror image of that very throne room. That was why it came as no surprise to find another set of heavy armor sitting upon a masonry throne, only this time, a broad lance graced the knight's lap. Link stared the thing down. He was expecting it to spring to life, but it continued to sit there, dormant, as if it had no need to rush into the battle. If that was how it was going to be, then this time, Link wanted the first blow. He readied his Master Sword and Hylian shield, and gave it a good jab underneath the helm. In sudden rage, the Iron Knuckle shot up and swung its lance around like a maniac. This, like its counterpart's battle axe, destroyed his throne, showcasing the weapon's unsuspecting weight. Link had ducked under this attack, and wasted no time by sneaking around its ankles to its backside. He released its armor, making the 8-foot beast furious. It chased Link down the line of brick columns, kicking its steel armor out of the way like a pile of rubbish. The lance's blade was different, but sharp enough to wedge into the floor under the pure momentum the warrior put behind it. Link promptly sliced the weak point in the chainmail, and the rest of the gear fell to the floor in a different pile. With the recovered key in hand, Link exited to the Sand Goddess's left hand, where another chest locked away another treasure. From inside it, Link pulled out a large but light object. A crystalline reflective surface flared the bright sun off the apex of a skewed hexagonal plate, where there was a frosted symbol on the surface of the glass, a king cobra head. The border encasing the reflective glass was a painted red steel, which wrapped around the back in a thick layer to which a steel handle attached to it. "It's a shield," Link realized. "Mirror shield," Navi proclaimed. "Look at the shield's polished surface. It can easily reflect light, maybe even energy." "Like evil energy?" Link asked. The irony of using a shield from his homeland, with his sigil. Link wished he had something like this to reflect the cursed magic that Ganondorf cast at him that day 7 years ago. He was happy to upgrade to it for the thin sheet of glass that made it lighter, while still providing a hard material to block attacks. Link just found it hard to part with a shield that he relied on so much, but, after all, it was a commodity, which was actually quite beat up at this point, and the shield he crafted all the way back at the beginning of his quest. He pulled out the old piece of bark with the Kokiri emblem he had painted on it. It was time to put it down, and let it go. With not one, but 2 of the temple's treasures in hand, and both sides of the symmetrical dungeon exhausted, it was time to find where those wretched witches were hiding out. Link made his way back to the large room with the statue of the goddess's full figure. It turned out the ledge on her left had a set of cobbles to climb down from, allowing him access to the floor of the space before her. The floor was bare, save for a large elevated pedestal, perhaps to lay offering to the towering idol. Link stood on it, and looked far and wide for anything on the engraved walls of the chamber. Alas, something blue and plump was barely visible high above him, on the wall in front of the statue. Just like the 2 rooms on either side of this one, a cluster of bomb flowers flourished in the dark, hot air of the desert colossus. There was no sun sculpture that he could find, but that didn't stop him from sending an arrow up there to blast another hole for sunlight to pour into. Once the ray of white light shot down onto him, another light appeared to his right. It was 6-sided, and the Gerudo symbol was blocked out from it. It shook as Link moved his right arm. "It's your mirror shield," Navi pointed out. Of course, Link had been carrying the new shield on his arm since he found it. It was actually a bit of fun to flash the reflected beam around on the walls and up onto the statue before him. "Wait, Link," Navi told him. Link stopped. The crackling of pebbles was audible from above. "Put it back on her face," she suggested. Link put the shield back over his head, giving the angle required to aim it there. The brown rock of her carved face cracked and crumbled wherever the white beam tattooed it. It was astounding. Link spread it around, until there was nothing left but a faceless goddess, and a hollow head, with some sort of grate visible in the back. Link used the opportunity to try it as a grappling point. With his hookshot, he latched onto the brass bars, and retracted his way up the abdomen of the sand goddess statue to reach her vacant face. The griddled grate was a simple gate that Link slid up into the ceiling, and beyond it, a very ornate door with a similar grid of gold was sitting, waiting to be opened. On the other side was a very familiar room, The carpet down the middle of it split the 2 rows of brick columns on either side. The door beyond was another ornate grid of gold, and guarding it was an even larger iron knuckle if that were possible, wide set with a tremendous amount of armor plated in brass and gold. Materializing in the air on either side were none other than the witches who infested this spirit temple.
Oh, looks like someone is here, Kome,
said the icy blue-haired witch.
Looks like it, Kotake,
Kome replied.
What an outrageous fellow he is to intrude so boldly into our temple.
Kotake snickered. What have you done with Naburu? Link demanded, a little bit angrily.
We should teach this outrageous fellow a lesson.
Kome cackled.
Oh, loyal minion.
The iron knuckle got up from its throne to greet Link, its weapon of choice being a warhammer with a head the size of Link.
Destroy this intruder on our behalf.
With that, they disappeared as abruptly as they came. Meanwhile, the iron knuckle swung the giant weapon, inviting him to duel. It would not match it, but Link chose to brandish something he hadn't for a while now, the Megaton Hammer. He would not be using his brand new shield with the hammer, as it was a 2-handed weapon. Link got close, awaiting the backswing of what would surely be a crushing blow. It happened, and Link narrowly avoided the resounding pound it gave to the floor. Without a blade to get wedged, he did not have a lot of time to counter, but with each blow from his own legendary hammer, the armor weakened just a bit. After a blow to the grooves, the giant was brought to its knees. As the monstrous fighter knelt, Link bashed its great helm with a big swing, sending it flying off of the shoulders of the beast and clanking onto the stone floor. Link dropped his hammer after he found who was underneath it.
Where am I?
A dazed Naburu asked as she concussed.
Well, looks like she's back to normal, Kume.
The 2 witches appeared again, circling the helpless Gerudo girl.
She's just a little girl, but she commands a lot of respect among the Gerudo, Kotake. Maybe we should make her work for the great Ganondorf a little while longer. Then we should brainwash her again.
No! Link shouted as they put up their long fingernailed hands and conjured a purple ball of energy, shooting it towards the injured Naburu. In a flash, she was gone again, the immense amount of armor she was wearing now in a heap of metal. Together, they phased through the wall to the next room, leaving Link behind for some reason. Furious at what they did to Naburu, he yanked the door open and slammed it behind him. A dark Gerudo-etched chamber, lit only by a ray of diffuse light from high above, was on the other side. The light fell on a floral rug, which was centered on a single platform of sandstone bricks. This light was a trope common to the rest of the temple.
Look, the kid has come to sacrifice himself to the great Ganondorf.
The 2 witches laughed maniacally as Link stepped into the light.
With my flames, I will burn him to the bone,
Kome smugly proclaimed.
With my ice, I will freeze him to the soul,
Kotake added in turn. They began buzzing around Link like a couple of flies. Link danced around puddles of flames shot out of the hand of Kome. On top of that, he steered clear of being frozen in a blast of ice from Kotake. Remember the mirror shield, Navi reminded. Each has got to be vulnerable to the other's power. These were energy attacks, after all, and Navi mentioned that energy could probably be reflected as well as light. Glimmering in the light, the mirror shield was ready for action. The next stream of fire from Kume Link bounced into Kotake. In retaliation, she sent a wave of freezing air towards Link, which Link deflected right at Kume.
Hey!
They stopped and said.
Okay, let's get serious, Kotake,
said Kume.
Oh, okay, Kume. Double dynamite attack!
The 2 cheered in unison.
Twin Rova!
The 2 circled each other, swirling faster and faster on their brooms until, in a flash, there were no brooms, no witches, just a woman, a tall woman floating above Link. Her body was split down the middle, into a fiery cloud of flames and a block of freezing ice. Her hair was just as eccentric as the witches she had combined from.
Long live our son, the king! Ho ho ho! Yes, long live Ganondorf, the king of evil! Hee hee hee!
Son? What? Link shouted. Ganondorf's
surrogate mother we are!
If Link wasn't taken aback enough, he was taken aback even more when this ethereal woman winked at him. This monstrosity they created, Was it really the surrogate mother of the threat to this land and the sacred realm? Despite this ludicrousness, it made a spot of sense. The greenish hue of Ganondorf's skin, the exaggerated hook of a nose, but he was still Gerudo, now wasn't he? This made Link despise this woman even more. He arduously fought the fire and ice spells back, tediously countering each attack with the mirror shield, directing the magic to the side of Twinrova that had not cast the spell. Finally, she weakened enough to fall down onto the bricks of the platform. Link lashed at her, slashing away with the Master Sword. An ear-splitting shriek filled the daylit chamber as Twinrova fell flat on her face. She then disintegrated into a puff of foggy magic, turning back into the components who combined to make her.
Shoot! What a fresh kid! This time we'll get really serious, right, Kotake?
Said Kume. Something strange started to happen to them. Their heads began to glow with white auras.
What?
Kotake said in response to it, as she looked over to Kume.
Hey Kume, what's up with your head? I don't know, but you have it too, Kotake.
They were involuntarily ascending up the cone of light from above.
But I'm only 400 years old, and I'm just 380 years old. We're twins, don't try to lie about your age. You must have gone senile. Who are you calling senile? Is that how you treat your older sister? We are twins, how can you be older? Yeah, how heartless you are. How can you be so ungrateful? You're heartless, you're ungrateful.
During their bickering, the sorceress sisters had risen up to the top, now fading into the sky.
I'll come back to haunt you,
they said in unison. Link realized that wherever Nabooru was, she wasn't coming back, remembering the fate of the awakened sages. With the penultimate evil cleared from the spirit temple, it was time for him to see her in that state. He lay down on the rug and closed his eyes. Hey, kid! Link opened his eyes to the ethereal chamber of sages, and Nabooru was trying to get his attention. Look what the little kid has become in the past 7 years, a competent swordsman. She eyed him from head to toe. Link felt awful for smashing her upside the head. No, I'm sorry, she interrupted. I really messed up. I was brainwashed by those old witches and used by Ganondorf to do his evil will. Link thought of what she could have done under their influence. The rest of my tribe, they finally saw the evil in Ganondorf and they rejected him, like I had originally. But at that point, I was under the control of that evil. I tried to brainwash people from my tribe to recruit them under the cause of Twinrova, Ganondorf's mother. But the brainwashing didn't work, thank goodness. However, one part of that plan still worked. I got them to send word that I was waiting for a boy garbed in green. Link interrupted her. Link, I'm sure you know what this means. I was brainwashed into waiting to kill you. That means those sorcerers saw you as a threat to their beloved Ganondorf. This was absolutely no surprise to Link, but the sense it made was still undeniable. I'm the only one who can stop him. Nabooru nodded. You won't be alone, though. Link smiled and looked around. Every one of the companions from his sage quests held that honor now. They were all awakened. But isn't it funny that a person like me could turn out to be the Sage of Spirit, and now I'm going to fight him as one of the 6 sages? I'm going to pay him back for what they did to me. She rested her elbow on one hand and put the other up to her ear, like she did when she met Link as a child. If only I knew you'd become such a handsome man. I should have kept my promise I made back then. Before Link could even digest that and respond, Rauru stepped into his field of view. Link, the hero, he said with a smile. Finally, all of us, the 6 sages, have been awakened. The time for the final showdown with the King of Evil has come. Link thought he might finally get an answer about this. It could not be put off any longer. What about the 7th sage? Aha! Rauru said, impressed at his astuteness. As I was about to say, you should go meet the one who is waiting for you. The 7th sage is special in that they may not be awakened. Link crumpled his eyebrows as Rauru stepped closer. The one who is waiting for you at the Temple of Time. Link looked around at everyone, his childhood friend, his sworn brother, his once betrothed, his royal liaison, and his Gerudo ally. Everyone gave a look back signifying their readiness. There was just the business of the last sage,